Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami Sangham Sharanam Gacchami Buddham Sharanam Gacchami Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami Sangham Sharanam Gacchami Buddham Sharanam Gacchami Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami Sangham Sharanam Gacchami Buddham Sharanam Gacchami Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami Sangham Sharanam Gacchami Buddham Sharanam Gacchami Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami Sangham Sharanam Gacchami Buddham Sharanam Gacchami Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami Sangham Sharanam Gacchami
Dumba Jumden de Dijen Jewa da Jumba Yandaba Zobe Sanje Rigba da Shamsu Demba Tewara Shewa Jigden Gemba Jibu deve galo jorwa lana meba lada menam je domba sanje chumden de pejawa shaya tuva la chaze lo chudu jabzu je o domba chumden de jen shewa chajumba yandava zobe sanje rikwa da shabsu temba Devara Jeva Jigden Jemba Jevo Dube Galo Jorwa Lana Meva Lada Menam Je Tumba Sanje Jumden De Pejawa Shaja Duba La Jaze Lo Jodo Jazo Je Ho Dumba Jumden De Jen Shewa Chachumba Yandaba Zobe Sanje Rigwa dan shabso denpa dewara sheba jikden jenpa jebo debe kalu yurwa lana meba lada menam je tumba sanje chumden de beja wa shanja duba la jaze lo chudu jazo je ho sanje chudan soje chonama ala chanju padu tane kyabzo che Tagi chujin gibe zonama je dola penje sanje drumbara sho sanje chudan soje chonama la janju bado dane jabzo che tagi chujin gibe zonama je dola penje sanje drumbara sho Sanje judan soji chonama la chanju bado tane kyabzo je Tagi chushin jibe chonama je jola penje sanje jubara sho Good morning. So we are now to the final few verses of the chapter 4. So we stopped on verse 40 where we talked about how meaningful it is to endure pain and suffering while striving to achieve enlightenment, while pursuing the path of Bodhisattva. So I wanted to talk a little bit more on this because this is very important. This is under the chapter of patience. It falls under the patience of accepting suffering. Why is this important is that for us ordinary people, we are all the time how to say it now? Let me rephrase. So we experience suffering dominates our life. So suffering is part and parcel of our life. So we will undergo suffering one way or another, whether it is a major suffering or a small suffering. So we are bombarded by suffering all the time. So if we fail to have this patience, this forbearance in accepting suffering, then we won't be able to get up when we are hit by these challenges. So it is very important to have have an attitude that can cope or face the challenges well. So first thing, it is to reflect on the advantages. So most of the time when we are befallen with suffering, we perceive suffering as something 100% negative. Of course, nobody wants to experience sufferings. But if we are able to contemplate, there are benefits, there are advantages there are advantages in experiencing suffering if we are able to really contemplate on the benefits. So here we have covered this before, but I won't go into detail. But here I'm just quoting some of the verses. This mere suffering is not painful since it accomplishes the great goal of eliminating the misery harming living beings. Suffering is something about which to be joyful. So here Shantideva is saying, so this is not part of the chapter 4, but I think this is from the chapter 6, the chapter of patience. So here we try to adopt our positive minds when we are faced with suffering. Remember the earlier chapter that ordinary people, we endure all kinds of difficulties and sufferings. For what? Just to gain some worldly benefits, some temporary joy and happiness, some worldly material gains. So if we can endure for such temporary benefits, then here Shantideva is saying that it is worthwhile, because what we are enduring when it comes to practice is that we are trying to eliminating the harms we will experience in the future. Also, we will be able to eliminate sufferings of other sentient beings. So it has a bigger purpose. It has a meaning. So here the main point is seeing meaning in suffering. Mark Twain, this is a beautiful quote. He says, "The two most important days of our lives are the day we are born and the day we figure out why." So here the meaning is so important. Whatever we are doing, if we are able to see meaning and purpose in that, then we will engage in that activity with joy. Then we will be able to bear any challenges. Remember the Nietzsche, the Friedrich Nietzsche? He who has why to live for can bear almost anyhow. So no matter how difficult the process is, how difficult the challenge is, as long as you have a clear goal, clear purpose, then we will be able to bear the difficulty, bear the challenges. So here, when we face challenges in our practices, we should see the bigger picture. Yes, at the moment, I experience a little bit of discomfort. It is not easy. There is pain, there is suffering. But if I endure it, I will be able to achieve a long-term happiness or lasting happiness. So it is worth We take vaccination, we go to see doctors, they will pierce you, they will inject you, but we bear it. Injection, for some people, it is difficult. A jab in your arm, somebody is poking needle into our arms, but we bear it because we see the benefit. We see the long-term benefit. The vaccination, people are trying to get vaccinated. People are jumping the queue. It's not enjoyable. It is quite painful. And we hear of side effects. Some people have this, what do you call it, pain or ache in the arm for days. Some people even experience a bit of fever and some, what is called, resemblance of the symptom resembling the COVID itself. But people fight to get that. And some people pay a lot of money. They are trying to find a way. They're willing to pay any amount just to get that jab. Why? Because they see the purpose. They see the long-term benefit. So we, likewise, we should be able to see the suffering and pain in that light. Then, no matter whatever challenges come our way, we will be able to face it. Isn't it fortunate if a man condemned to death is released with just an amputated hand? Isn't it wonderful that accepting human suffering frees you from the suffering of hell? Another way to look at suffering is that we are now exhausting the karma. What we are experiencing, whether it be a pleasant experience or unpleasant experience, it is a result of our past karma. So we know well from our own action in this life that we have amassed a mountain of negative karma. And nobody else is going to experience that. We need to either experience the result or purify it. So one way to exhaust that karma is to experience that. Another way is to do purification. And when we do purification, remember there are 3 degrees of the consequences, or 3 degrees of levels of purification. If we are able to engage in the most powerful purification, then we will be able to purify the karma from the root. So there will be nothing left. It will be eradicated forever. We will never ever experience a tiniest result of that karma. So that's the best way. The medium purification can at least lighten the consequences, lighten the result. So let's say if we have created a karma to be born in lower realms, let's say in hell realm, because of the power of the purification that we have engaged in, it lightens the consequence, it reduces the power of that negative karma, and instead of being born in the lower realms, we experience a kind of a headache or some pain or suffering in this world. So that's why I always tell this to people that, sometimes in the monasteries, the great practitioners will get all kinds of rare disease Like my own teacher, Rinpoche passed away from Parkinson. At that time, Parkinson is not very well known, especially in India. Still, there is no real treatment. So my teacher is a great practitioner. And then, you wonder, how come? Not just my teacher, there are many great beings who who die from all kind of sicknesses. So these, I strongly believe that this is how, through their practice, they are able to minimize the heavy negative karma instead of being born in lower realms or even harsher consequences. They are able to experience that in this very lifetime in the form of that kind of sickness, and thereby exhaust the karma. So when we experience suffering, let's say when we fall sick, instead of feeling so negative and low about it, one way is to say, okay, in a way this is good. I must have committed the karma. So now I'm experiencing here, I'm exhausting the karma. Maybe my all that prayers and practices have helped to experience that karma in this life. So if we are able to adopt that kind of attitude, even though it does not cure us from that suffering or that disaster, but at least we have the peace of mind. At least we can prevent additional mental turmoil, mental anguish, thinking negatively about it. I am the worst person. How come I am experiencing this? So that's what it means. Isn't it fortunate? The analogy is that if a person is sentenced to death, but somehow somebody intervened, and then instead of death, if the person has to amputate his hand or leg, of course amputation is bad, but compared to death, it is much lighter. Similarly, it is better for us to be born in lower realm than, it is better for us to experience some form of suffering in this life than being born in the lower realm. Isn't it wonderful that accepting human suffering frees you from the suffering of hell? So that's one way to look at suffering. And then there is nothing at all that does not become easier through practice. Therefore, from accepting small problems, you will be able to bear great difficulties. So this is very true. Our mind has this ability. If we endure, if we tolerate, then it becomes easier. So when we experience small suffering, with that kind of attitude, if we're able to tolerate, then the bigger sufferings, if we face bigger sufferings and bigger challenges, we are ready. So this is quite obvious. Like training, military training. So first day, you may not be able to perform well, but day after day, through practice, one will be able to perform better. It's like same like going to the gym. The first time you may not be able to do that long, but slowly you improve. So it's same here. And also we find that some, like people from developed countries, they have a low kind of a tolerance because they are not used to the harsh life. Whereas people in what you call those poor countries, people who have experienced harsh life, they are able to endure difficulties much more easier than those who have not experienced. So it is important that we adopt that kind of attitude, that when we are faced with small difficulties, we can say, okay, this is for me to train so that I can tolerate more. I can endure greater suffering. The point is that, as I mentioned earlier, since the suffering and pain is part of our life, if we fail to develop that kind of resilience, if we are unable to look at it as something common, something part and parcel of our life, then it will be difficult. If we are able to say, oh, this is bound to happen, this is my life, this is what it comes. Like when our old car breaks down, we are okay with that because we have this expectation. We anticipated that this is bound to happen. Sooner or later, this old car will break down. So when you have that kind of anticipation, so when it really happens, you are okay. Likewise, suffering is part of our life. If we expect that, it's nothing to be amazed that I fall sick. Remember, I quoted one time, Kadam Lamaba, Kadam Masters, say that when we fall sick, it is something. What was it? Falling sickness is something that is bound to happen. It's nothing to be surprised and shocked. It's like if we poke our finger in the fire, it will burn us. We don't get shocked because that is the nature. So we are in this suffering existence. So these are bound to happen. This is important. Otherwise, we will go into depression. Something little happens, and then we go into depression. Remember, in the self-compassion, there's one component is what is called common humanity. That's very important because when we go through difficulty, what we think is that I am the only one experiencing this. It's like nobody else undergoes such pain and suffering. So that's why you feel so depressed. But in reality, it is not true. Everybody goes through suffering one way or another. But when we go through suffering, we have this very mistaken view that we are the only one who is going through this. So common humanity is to say, oh, I am not alone. Everybody goes through such turmoil and difficulty. So I shouldn't feel so low and depressed about it. So that I wanted to bring in here because it is important. So now, back to the chapter 4. So this is now reminding us of the pledges that we have made. Remember, we were talking about these inner enemies, the afflictions, how detrimental they can be, how much damage they can cause us. They portray as our friends and savior, but in reality, they destroy us. So first we identify the enemy, and then we say we need to tackle this. So here's just one reason why we need to be mindful or be conscientious about this inner enemy that is residing within us. Choju namge te tukbe dowa nyomu le tewar tamje kangze tani jang nyomu namle matrewa taagi tsue jang mishebar mawa chedar nyomba min tedar nyomu shombala taudu shirmi dobar chas. When I promise to liberate all those beings dwelling in the 10 directions as far as the ends of space, from their disturbing conceptions, I myself was not yet freed from mine. So when we took the Bodhisattva vows, nobody forced us to take the Bodhisattva vows. We studied about it, we contemplated on the benefits, and we decided that this is the great way to practice. So in front of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, we have vowed to liberate all sentient beings. So here, all the sentient beings dwelling in the 10 directions. So, the infinite number of sentient beings. So we have made that vow. So in order to liberate them, in the Buddhist tradition, there is no such thing as you just pick them up and bring to the land of Buddha. The only way is to show the path, the way Buddha did. Buddha achieved enlightenment. But Buddha couldn't bring us all to the Buddhahood. The only thing Buddha could do was to show us the path, teach us the way, to guide us, be our guide. And then we have to follow. So in order to teach others, in order to show the way, we ourselves need to know the path well. If we don't know what we are teaching them, then there is no way. So that's why I myself was not yet free from mine. So the reason why we need to remove these afflictions is that we have made that promise, but in order to help them, first we need to free ourselves. That's the whole point, isn't it? The bodhicitta. I need to help these sentient beings, but at the moment, I cannot help even one sentient being, let alone all sentient beings. So when can I be able to do that? When I achieve enlightenment, when I myself become Buddha, then I have the capability to really liberate sentient beings. So in order to do that, I need to engage in practice. So that's the whole idea of bodhicitta. So that's what he was saying. I myself was not yet freed from mine, thus unaware of even my own capacity. Because we let the afflictions, the delusions reign us or rule us or control us, we are not even aware of our own capacity. So was it not somewhat crazy to have spoken like that? So if we ourselves are confused and ignorant of where to go and how to get out of samsara, then isn't it, crazy to make such promises, such pledges that I will liberate? We very, remember the special, what is that, laksam, the special attitude. We said that not only all sentient beings need to be liberated, but I will take the responsibility. I will do it. So here saying that, wasn't that somewhat crazy to have spoken like that? But as this is so, I must never withdraw. Anyway, we have already made the pledge. So this is, I must never withdraw. Now I cannot withdraw from what I have vowed. So I need to vanquish the afflictions within me, all these inner enemies. I need to vanquish. Instead of harboring them, giving warm hospitality, I need to look at them as my enemies, and I need to remove them from within me. Dila thagi shen jashin kundu sune yu te de namba tenje nyomun ba nyomun jomje matok sos. So now is, how shall I fight this inner enemy? So, and to do this will be my sole obsession. So I should be so, my sole goal should be fighting this enemy. But here, this is the chapter on conscientiousness. So it's not really applying the actual antidote. It is mainly being careful, being conscientious, not letting our mind under the control, always careful. It's like, now that we know, we have identified who the enemy is, so we always be watchful of that enemy's actions. So let's say if we are living in a same quarter, and then we realize that there is somebody stealing things, and then we figure it out that this person, somebody called John, is the one who has been stealing things. So what would we do? When the person is around, we will be always keeping a watch. We will be watching his every move and make sure that he doesn't get a chance to steal our things. So likewise, we have to adopt that kind of vigility, is it? That kind of carefulness, that kind of watchfulness, always watching and observing our mind, or all those afflictions. What is anger up to? What is our jealousy up to? What is our hatred up to? So always being watched, that's what it means. So to do this will be my sole obsession. So you are so obsessed on this, and holding a strong grudge, I shall meet them in battle. So you need to really, what do you call, what is the word? Uh, uh, recollect. There's a, yeah, for the lack of this better term, so I would say recollect how much damage it has caused. So we are very good when it comes to ordinary enemy. So we fuel our anger because, oh, that person, yeah, I hate that person and I must get even with him, because you count each and everything that person has done to you. Oh, there was one day, when I was going there, he said this to me. And then the next time when I met him, he did this to me. And then later, sometimes, so we not ruminate. We what is that word? Anyway, we remember all this. We ponder on all the things that person did to us. So we are very good at that. So this one, that skill, that experience we have with the ordinary enemy, we should use here. So this anger has done this and this and this. Yeah, if you count, I think there are lots of incidents that we can bring to the surface. So one time I was so angry and I did this and this and this, and then yeah, since then, yeah, my relationship ended. Or there was this friend, he's a very good friend of this thing, and then out of anger I said this, and that's it. So we have so many incidents. So these are all because of anger. So likewise, greed, how much harm and pain our greed has endured us. We can count so many. So that's what it means. We really have to hold this grudge against this. It is okay. So that's why it says, but disturbing conceptions such as this destroy disturbing conceptions and for the time being are not to be. So there's this, where is this one? So here the first two lines says that you need to hold grudge. But normally we say that you shouldn't hold grudge against anything. So isn't it afflictive itself to hold grudge against these afflictions? So Shantideva says this is different. So holding grudge against these afflictions, it may appear as the this negative form of grudge, but it is not. It just appears as it is the negative form of grudge. But here, because our goal is to destroy or to escape the wrath of the afflictions, it is okay to hold such animosity against the afflictions. It is not okay to hold grudge and animosity against another person, but it is okay to hold such grudge and obsession against inner enemies. So now there's another option. It says that, so it is very difficult to really fight and subdue and overcome these afflictions. So they have been with us for a long time and it is not easy. So isn't it easier just to, be friendly with the afflictions? He says, no. Thani sekte se gyurdam dhagi go che yang lai Number kundu nyomobe talandu para mijawos. It would be better for me to be burned, to have my head cut off, and to be killed. So all these are okay. If I were to be burned alive, I can accept that. If my head were to be cut off, that's still okay. And also I were to be killed. This says that's okay. Because all this, what it does is only take away our life, this life. There is no more than that. But whereas if we become subservient to the afflictions, not only will it destroy our life in this life, it will also bring us down to the lower realms and chain us in that form of suffering for eons and eons. So for that reason, no matter whatever happens, rather than even bowing down to these ever-present disturbing conceptions, I wouldn't surrender. I wouldn't bow to these afflictions. So it is like those, in the movie we see the interrogation techniques, waterboarding and whatever. So basically saying that even if you are tortured, even if somebody holds a gun at your temple or your head and threatens you that if you don't bow to the afflictions, Shantideva was saying that we should never ever give up our life, but never ever bow down to afflicted emotions. Do we do that? We happily cooperate. The what do you call the afflictions, they don't have to even persuade us, let alone torturing us. They just have to appear. The anger says you do this, and we happily do that. So in chapter 6, in the chapter of patience, it says that these afflictive emotions, these afflictions, have no other job than to cause us harm. So for ordinary enemy, they cannot commit all their time in causing harm to us because they have a livelihood to attend to. They need to go to work. They need to sleep. They need to watch TV. They need to eat. So they cannot devote all their time on harming us. But these afflictions, anger, hatred, jealousy, greed, pride, all these, they have the whole time, 24 hours, 7 days, 7-11. So their main job is to cause us harm. But we don't realize that. So that's why Shantideva was saying that we should not cooperate. We should not bow down. We should always stand up. The reason sometimes we feel that these inner enemies, the afflictions, it is very difficult. Sometimes we feel that there is no way that we will be able to overcome this. We will be able to defeat the inner enemies. This is what it says. Tame tawo yu ne chungyang ni yushin tado ne shin yong song ne nuba tene tene chirdogi nyomo tazu tedan drama yins. Common enemies, when expelled from one country, simply retire and settle down in another. Though when their strength is recovered, they then return. But the way of this enemy, my disturbing conceptions, is not similar in this respect. So he's saying that we don't have to lose our confidence. We don't need to feel that we cannot fight the inner enemies. So it's the inner enemies is different from the ordinary enemy, the common enemy. So even if we are able to defeat them one time, but they can recruit, regroup, and then they can come back. That we know, isn't it? Some of these terrorist groups, they are dormant for a while, and then suddenly they re-emerge, and then they cause so much destruction. So they are regrouping. Even if you expel them from whatever boundary, they can re-enter, they can re-emerge, and then can cause so much destruction. But the inner enemy, once it is eradicated, so here we are talking about real, if we are able to really remove them from our mental stream, then there is no way it can come back. Because these afflictions are founded on this misconception. So when we are able to destroy that foundation, so there's no basis for it to really form. So it crumbles. And so there's no way that they can come back. So it is giving us this, Shantideva was giving us this encouragement that, we can defeat this. We can be victorious in defeating the inner enemies, because we need to really get to the core, to the foundation where it is built. So if we are able to crumble that structure, then it can never rebuild. Like trees, like these weeds, I have an image here. Wheat is an issue, isn't it, for farmers? So back in Bhutan, what my parents used to do is, so they have to plow the field, and then those weeds, they will burn it. If you don't burn this, what will happen is it will again appear. So just cutting won't do. You have to uproot and burn it. Then that's the end of it. So that's why if you are able to attack the foundation on which these afflictions are built, then we can overcome this. We can defeat them. Common enemies, when expelled from one country, simply retire and settle down in another. Though when their strength is recovered, they then return. But the way of this enemy, my disturbing conceptions, is not similar in this respect. So now how? How can we stumble, or how can we bring down that structure? Is through nyomo sherab miki pang tayi lese kaundu drowa gyur Kandu nene tanu chajirwong Loshen dala zomba mebar says. So deluded, disturbing conceptions. So here the Tibetan term nyomong nyomong, there's a repetition. So one explanation is that nyomong nyomong, nyomong is the afflictions or delusions. So the second one is delusion is it can be weakened. It is not so strong and formidable as it appears, but it only just need to look from the eyes of wisdom. Nyumu nyumu shira miki pangs. So eye of wisdom is wisdom realizing emptiness. So all these delusions, anger, hatred, jealousy, pride, all these are built on this, the notion, this misconception of inherent existence. So like attachment is the first we view that I exist. There is something, what do you call, independent I, which is not reliant on any factors. It exists from its own there. So with that kind of view, we develop attachment. So if we are able to destroy that misconception that there is no inherent existence, then it falls, it shatters. So we need to cultivate the wisdom realizing emptiness. So deluded, disturbing conceptions, when forsaken by the eye of wisdom, so eye of wisdom is the emptiness, wisdom realizing emptiness, and dispelled from our mind, where will you go? So when we develop, when we generate that wisdom, that wisdom which sees through that what do you call, sees through that false or pretense. So it doesn't last, it cannot stand. Where will you dwell in order to be able to injure me again? But weak-minded I have been. So even though that is the fact, that if we are able to generate or cultivate the wisdom realizing emptiness, can really destroy the inner enemies. But weak-minded, so Shandita was calling us the weak-minded, I have been reduced to making no effort. For many of us, we don't realize that. Even after realizing it, we don't do anything about it. We don't put effort because of laziness. We try to meditate for 5 minutes or maximum 15 minutes and then, oh, it's too tiring, I'm exhausted. And the next day, no, you don't want to do that. So if we are like that, if we are unable to apply persistent perseverance, then we are weak-minded and nothing will happen, and our inner enemies will always control us. So they will be the victorious one. Nyomo shira mijiba tayi lese kanto droba jurus. So once I have eliminated, once I have removed from my mind, where would you go? Where would you remain? Kanto nene tanu chajirwong. How can you come and cause me harm again? However, Loshin Tala Tsumba Mebre said, however, because of lack of endurance, lack of perseverance, I let it be. I didn't do anything. So the meaning is that until now, I let it be, but from now onwards, I will cultivate the antidote which is the wisdom realizing emptiness, and tackle it. So then how? Nyomo namni yuna mine wangzo lamin panang means tele shenang. So here we need to, so the first part here. So this is where our overconfidence is required. Our pride is required. Normally, overconfident is kind of frowned upon, or this pride from the Buddhist point of view is frowned upon. But here, when it comes to tackling the afflictions, it is good to have this kind of what we call ngombe ngaige, is this overconfidence. Yes, I can do it, I can defeat this. And it is not baseless. We can do it because it is founded on the this misconception that inherent existence. Since even the delusions, even the afflictive emotions do not exist inherently. Just that fact is enough to give us the confidence, boost our confidence. Because there's no basic, there's no stronghold, there's nothing formidable there. It's only because it appears so strong is that we fail to cultivate this wisdom eye. So once we wear that glasses, the wisdom glasses, we can see it clearly. And then, nowhere. So let's say the magic, the illusions. So when we really don't know how this is done, there's so much awe. We get so amazed, and how did they do it like this? But when you are able to understand how they did it, when you find the trick behind all this, then when you see for the second time, you are not amazed. You know that, this is just the trick. So that's what we need to have. So when we are able to meditate on the emptiness, and when we're able to gain such a realization, then we will see through its drama or acting or pretense or whatever that is. And then, never ever will we be deceived by it. So now, how do we develop that? How do we know? How do we understand this concept of emptiness? Or how can we know that, the delusions, they do not have the inherent nature? So this is similar to this popular verse that His Holiness always cites. Pungme pungbo leshime tela pungme terdeme tishinsheba pungdeme tishinsheba kangshiyins. So let me read the Tibetan verse. Nyomo namne yu namine wangzo lamin panang min tele shenang mina dida karne dowa kunnu ches. If these disturbing conceptions do not exist within the objects, the sense organs, between the two, nor elsewhere, then where do they exist and how do they harm the world? So this is similar to what I was saying. Pungme pungbo leshime tela pungme tederme. Tishin sheba pungdeme tishin sheba kangshiyins. So English translation is not the aggregates and not different from the aggregates. The aggregates are not him and he is not in them. The Tathagata does not possess the aggregates. What Tathagata is there? It doesn't make any sense, isn't it, if you just read the verse. So His Holiness explains this. Buddha's aggregates, his body and mind, cannot be posited as the Buddha. So here if saying, if Buddha exists inherently, if there is this inherent nature of Buddha, then when searched amongst the Buddha's aggregates, or the what you call the combination, one needs to find Buddha somewhere amongst parts and the whole. So here is a Buddha's aggregates, his body and mind cannot be posited as the Buddha. Neither can the Buddha be identified independently of his body and mind. The Buddha does not inherently possess the aggregates, nor are the aggregates inherently the basis of the Buddha. When we search through such an analysis, even the Buddha turns out to be unfindable. This is exactly what here it is. So we talk about this, what they use, the afflictions. So if afflictions, if they exist inherently, then we should be able to, when through the analysis, we will be able to find it. So he says that we cannot find it. If these disturbing conceptions do not exist, they do not exist within the objects, within the sense organs, or between the two, nor elsewhere. So then, where do they exist, and how do they harm the world? So basically, here the point is that even that afflictive emotions, so they are empty of inherent existence. They do not, even though to us it appears as there's this solidity there, there is this independent nature there, but it's saying that there's no independent nature there. So it is actually dependent upon the causes and conditions. So the fact that the afflictions are devoid of such independent and autonomous existence, we can remove it. If there is this inherent nature, if it exists inherently, then we cannot, because there's nothing opposing to that thing. So even they cannot be a wisdom realizing emptiness if that exists inherently. So because that it is devoid of that inherent existence, we can overcome it by cultivating the wisdom realizing emptiness. But then the next question is, does it mean that it does not exist? I say, yes, it does exist. It causes harm. But the way it exists is not the way we perceive it. Dini gyunda tejir nyingla jigbong shejir zombaten tomenyedu tala nyeso namsu chide nobache. They are like an illusion. They exist, but they exist like an illusion. So the magicians, when they perform these various feats, to us it appears as there are these things, but we know well that it is an illusion. So some magicians, out of the blue, a big flower appears. These are illusions. So even though the afflictive emotions such as anger, hatred, jealousy, pride, greed, all these, they are devoid of inherent existence, but they do exist. They exist like an illusion. Thus I should dispel the fear within my heart and strive resolutely for wisdom. I should not be fearful that I cannot destroy them. I should not be fearful that they can cause so much damage and there's nothing I can do. Because they are like illusions. And there is this antidote there, the wisdom realizing emptiness. So the moment I cultivate that wisdom, I can overpower the afflictions. I can destroy them. I can eradicate. I can eliminate them from the root. So for no real reason, why should I suffer so much in hell? Since that is the case, since there is a way out, why am I still acting as if there is no way out? Why am I giving so much leniency to these inner enemies and let them control me? Why am I so subservient to them and fulfill their every command, and thereby creating negative karma that will land me in lower realms? So for no reason, why should I suffer so much in hell? No need. We can develop that wisdom realizing emptiness. Tedar namsam chige shebayi laba dube chedu bebarcha membe ngama nyena men thagi chogu neba soba khalayus. Chanju sembe chobala jubale payo temba shejawa de liushibaus. So this is the final verse. Therefore means after going through all that, after reflecting on all this, remember the Shantideva main goal is to instill in us that conscientiousness. And he provides so many reasons, rational reasons, why we need to be conscientious. He talks about how difficult it is to find this precious human rebirth. Therefore, we have to be, while we have this, we have to be conscientious. So all this boils down to our fundamental aspiration, wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. So if that is the case, we need to guard our mind. The best way, the most effective way, especially at this stage, we are at the beginner stage. We don't we haven't developed the wisdom realizing emptiness, so we cannot really apply direct antidotes to these afflictions. So for beginners, the best practice is to guard our mind, prevent our mind from being controlled by our afflictions. In order to do that, we need to be careful. We need to adopt this conscientiousness, all the time watchful. Now that we have identified the culprit, now we know who is the one causing all these sufferings. Now we know the one that is destroying all that happiness that we could enjoy. So after all reflecting all this, and after we understanding this, therefore having thought about this well, I should try to put these precepts into practice just as they have been explained. as Shantideva has explained, saying that I should try to put these precepts into practice. Shantideva provided many reasons, many ways to practice this conscientiousness. Think about the consequences. While we are human beings, we have the opportunity, we should be. Otherwise, what happens? Once we are born in lower realms, there's no way we can do. We think that Buddhas can help, but no, it is difficult. We ourselves have to create that hook. Otherwise, Buddha cannot do anything. So I should try to put these precepts into practice just as they have been explained. If the doctor's instructions are ignored, how will a patient in need of cure be healed by this medicine? Just reading the prescription, patient won't be healed. Mengi malen, membe manye de nebarani kine nyabayins. If we find a good doctor, a great doctor, and then we have resources we have access to very good medicine. But if we don't take that, we won't be healed from our illnesses. And when that happens, it is not the fault of the doctor. Doctor is an expert. And then it is not the fault of medicine. The medicine did not lack anything. It is because we didn't take it. So likewise, if the doctor's instructions are ignored, here the doctor is Buddha. Doctor like Buddha has given a clear instruction that if you want to be happy and avoid suffering, if you do not want to experience suffering, then do this and do this and do this. Mainly, be conscientious about your action, both physical and mental. That's the instruction. But if we fail to follow the instructions, then how will a patient in need of cure be healed by these medicines? Likewise, how can we be healed? How can we escape suffering? How can we achieve lasting happiness? There is no way we can achieve. So that concludes the chapter 4. But I came across a stanza. So since there is maybe I can take 5 more minutes. You say, Milu tobara nyebaga sanje jungwa nyebaraka sanje teba nyebaraka chanju semja nyebaraka negab shibu dedanis. It lists 4 conditions, 4 conducive conditions. First one is Milu tobara nyebaka. It is so hard to obtain this human rebirth. We all know that. I'm not going into detail. Sanje jungwa nyebaraka. Even we achieve this human body, but it is difficult to meet Buddha. We haven't met Buddha, even though we should be considered fortunate, but we are not so fortunate because we didn't meet Buddha. Buddha is gone by the time we are born. But at least Buddha's Dharma is still alive. Sanje Teba Nyebaraka. Even we are born during the time of Buddha, it is difficult to have faith in Buddha. Look around us. How many have faith in Buddha and Buddhism? Most of the people are not interested even in this spiritual field. Those who are into the quest, those who have developed some interest in spirituality, but they are not into Buddhism. So very few, only a handful of people have faith in Buddha and Buddhism. Chanju semde nyebaka. And then amongst the handful of those people who have faith in Buddha and Buddhism, but how many have faith in bodhicitta? Those practitioners from Pali traditions, they have no interest in bodhicitta, but only Mahayana practitioners or the Sanskrit traditions, the followers of Sanskrit traditions have interest in bodhicitta. So these are, so we, for some, coincidence, we have achieved all this. We have achieved this human rebirth. We are not born as animal or any other lower rank beings. We have met Buddha Dharma. We have faith in Buddha Dharma, and then we have faith in bodhicitta. That's why we took the Bodhisattva vows. That's why you are tuning to this talk. So we are very, very fortunate. So, keba chewara nyeba ka tejir tuene ma bangshiks. So these are very, very hard and rare to find this kind of opportunity. These four circumstances. It says this, keba chewara nyeba ka, it takes eons and eons of time to achieve all these four conditions. But we have achieved it. Now that we have this opportunity, you say we should not fetter away this great opportunity, this precious opportunity. So therefore, this is the time we should endure and apply perseverance. We should persevere in our practice. And with perseverance, we should adopt conscientiousness. Because Tangsung Chenpo Tedagi Payo Bene Chanjub Nye Chunam Tamjeji Zawe Kodon Suji Lam Payo Badon Sunju Yins. Because all these past Buddhas have achieved enlightenment because of adopting this mindset, the conscientiousness. And Buddha has said that Sanje Chunam Tamje Yi Zawe Kodang Suji Lams. So this is like the entrance. Bodhicitta is like the root. Not bodhicitta. Conscientiousness is like the entrance or the root of all the Dharma practice. Without that, there is no real practice. Then we can see. Remember, we talked about it. So if we are reckless, then if we are not conscientiousness, if we are not conscientious, then we will engage in all kind of reckless behaviors. That includes committing negative actions and engaging in negative actions. The end result will be suffering. So it is actually contradictory to what we really wanted and what we do. So to align these two, our wish and our action, conscientiousness is the way to go about. So always adopt from the morning, set this this attitude that today I will be careful, I will be mindful, I will not engage in any action that is contrary to Dharma practice. Mainly the 10 non-virtue. If we are able to set our mind from the morning And then throughout the day, remind ourselves every now and then. Maybe you can come up with one stanza. Every time you remember, recite that. That will be like to remind you. That's what I try to do. I recite this Kunjo Sumla Tajibche. Every time I try to be mindful of the the motivation that I set up in the morning. So it helps. So sometimes you will be reciting that verse maybe 20 times, sometimes maybe 3-4 times, depending on how mindful you are. So if we are able to do that consistently, then it will become kind of part of our habit. Then we don't really need to set up our mind. We are used to it. We are kind of become automatic in that way. So that's what we should take away from covering this, the chapter on chapter of conscientiousness. So time is already up. So thank you very much, and try your best. Let's dedicate our merits. Tagi chinyi sabe gyawa de tenda rowa kunla kangpenda kewara chuzun losan chagwa yi tembe nyingbu ringdu seche sho jambe bawe jedara kemba dan kundu sambu tenyang teshin du teda kungi jesu talobchi gyawa deda tamje rabdu ngo dusun shekbe gyawa tamje gi ngowa kanla chodu ngakba de tagi kewe cawan digunya zangbo chuji rabdu ngowa gis. Okay, thank you.